All right. Hi, everybody. We are live here on LinkedIn. My name is Carly McMillan, and as you can see here, I'm the co-founder of PPC Farm. Super excited to be talking with everybody today about PPC and really anything Amazon related. So if you have any questions, please pop those into the LinkedIn live area, the live event, and I'll be able to answer them over from over there. So yeah, just a little bit more background about me, about PPC Farm. If you're new here, so like I said, I am one of the co-founders of PPC Farm, and we do Amazon marketing, Amazon PPC, and we run advertising from a profit-first strategy. And what that means is that we don't just chase after vanity metrics like ACoS and top line revenue with no strategy behind it. We really use a profit first mindset, which means making sure that every single decision that we're making is actually delivering more to your bottom line. Because at the end of the day, who cares how much revenue you made if you didn't actually have more money in your bank account? So, if you're interested in learning more about PPC Farm at all, you can check out our website at ppcfarm.com. And if you're interested in linking up with me, if you're not already following me or connected with me on LinkedIn, please go ahead and do that. And I will be happy to meet you and to connect. Okay. So I'm gonna just pop the link for the event into the. Oh yeah, okay. It says you can post comments to LinkedIn. So yeah, if you don't have the link there, you can just head over to the event page. Let me see if I can post that anywhere. Okay, let's see. I guess. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm able to show the comments on the stage right now. Let me just check what we're seeing here. All right. There you go. So if you want to post comments, I think you should be able to click that link there and I'll be able to see any comments that you have. Okay, so the first question that we have right now is from Adnan, and he asked, how do you handle budget allocation across campaigns when you have limited spend but multiple products that need ranking support? Basically, how do you prioritize budget when you have lots of ASINs and each of those ASINs has lots of campaigns? How do you avoid, overspending? Okay, so we have, a full what we call our gold mining strategy that has this all listed out in detail. But basically, what you're going to want to do is maximize what's working and minimize what's not working. And you are going to need to take more of a rifle approach rather than a shotgun approach. So, for example, when we run PPC with kind of no budget caps, no limits, we'll put up to 500 to even 1,000 keywords in our broad discovery campaign, and the idea there is to cast as wide of a net as possible. And that can really only be done with a larger budget because you never know what's going to work and what's going to be spending your money, right? But if you have a limited budget and you still want to run this sort of same discovery campaign, then you're going to need to reduce the number of keywords in there. It's as simple as that, right? You're basically, the reason we call it our gold mining strategy is because you're kind of looking for those veins of gold to mine rather than like exploding the whole bedrock, I guess, if we're using that analogy. So that's what I would recommend in terms of trying to manage campaigns that have a lower budget in PPC. Okay. What else have we got? Um, okay. Okay, it looks like the next question is from Brittany, and she asked, "What is the most common mistake you see people making when they're trying to optimize your PPC, or when you're trying to optimize their PPC?" So there's a lot. There's a lot of mistakes that I see people making. I think that the mistakes can kind of be categorized in a couple of different ways. So the first way is like mindset mistakes, and then the second thing is simply related to is more related to how they structure campaigns. I mean, these are two really fundamental things that I think can make or break your PPC from a foundational perspective. So, talking about mindset things, I've talked about this in a couple of videos recently, but if you are making knee jerk, kind of decisions, and you go into your campaigns and you see a big drop in sales or something like that, then we're going to and you're like, oh my God, I have to pause everything, or something's not working, what's not working, and you kind of panic. That is a recipe for disaster, right? And you're going to go in and you're going to be making big changes to things that you don't really have a strategy for, you don't know what you're doing, right? So that mindset of like just going on gut reaction alone and maybe panicking when things go up or down, is a huge, it's just going to sabotage your PPC, right? And the other, that's a big one. And the other area is, like I said, structure. So whenever we audit campaigns for potential clients, one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people who have one campaign for one campaign per keyword. Not necessarily a bad strategy, but that can be problematic, depending on how you're managing things. But if they don't have one ASIN, one ad group, and one match type per campaign, then nothing else is going to work. They're not going to be able to properly sift through that data to make decisions based on what's actually happening in their PPC, right? And so that is a fundamental problem that I see over and over. Like basically every single account that we audit has this problem, because um, people just don't understand the the bigger picture and that full strategy for how to run PPC, right? The how PPC actually works. They sort of feel like they can just read the tea leaves, so to speak, and get an understanding of that. So those are kind of two big mistakes. Another smaller mistake, but one that can be also very problematic, is not having enough keyword targets. Now I know I just talked about when you're limited by budget and you might need to reduce the number of keyword targets, then yeah, you might need to go a little bit slower there. But in general, you want to cast a wide net. I see a lot of people talking about how you should only have like 10, you know, targets per campaign, but I don't think that that's going to give you enough of a runway and enough chances, enough shots on goal to actually get conversions in your campaign. So that's another one that I see. But okay, great question. Okay, this next question is from Mohammed. He said, "What is your starting set of campaigns for a newly launched product?" Really good question. So we actually set up to 13 different campaigns per ASIN. Remember, I just talked about structure, right? So it's one ASIN, one ad group, and one match type per campaign. And because of that structure, we do tend to have maybe more campaigns than most folks. So we do set up to 13 campaigns per ASIN when we're first launching. I don't think you necessarily need all of those when you're first launching those. So if so a fundamental good launch strategy would be to set up your discovery campaigns and then your exact campaigns where you're going to harvest your keywords into, right? So for discovery campaigns, what I would recommend is setting up a broad match type campaign, an automatic campaign, and then a category targeting campaign. Those are going to be your levers for discovering new keywords. And from those campaigns, you're going to look in your search term report and find which search terms are actually converting for that specific ASIN, and you'll move those over into your two exact campaigns, which I recommend using one that is the exact match type and for keywords, and then one with the exact match type for product targets or like competitor ASINs, right? So that's a total of 5 campaigns that make up the launch strategy. And then in addition to that, I would always recommend setting up another auto campaign, which is a low bid auto campaign. That allows you to kind of pick up any scraps that people are leaving around for very low bids. So yeah, one more time. So 6 total campaigns I would recommend for a launch: broad match campaign, automatic campaign with a higher bid and a category targeted campaign. Those are your discovery campaigns. And then an exact keyword targeting campaign and an exact product targeting campaign, plus the very important low bid auto campaign to help you grab any scraps. We start those at 20 cents, by the way. Okay. Great. And then I have someone else here. They don't have their name associated, just says LinkedIn user. So, hey, all right. In your opinion, what is a good organic PPC revenue ratio? Okay, great question. So, this is always going to be ASIN dependent, right? Every ASIN is going to have a different ratio here, but ideally, you want to have 100% organic revenue because that's going to get you the most profit, right? Now, that is basically impossible. And not necessarily the right move, because PPC can help you to improve your organic ranking, right? And it's kind of like one hand washes the other kind of a situation. So I think that if you have like a 70-30 organic to PPC revenue for an ASIN, that's pretty good. But the bottom line is profitability, right? So I think the ratio of organic to PPC matters less, and what matters more is, are you seeing, increased profit for that ASIN month over month? And, if not, are you pushing PPC too much, right? And does that maybe need to come down, or what do your numbers look like there, right? But something like a 60-40, 70-30, I think would be considered pretty healthy. Okay. This also comes from Mohammed. What are your thoughts about selecting a date range while optimizing the campaigns? Okay, so if you are, let's say, auditing campaigns and you're like, should I look at the 7-day period or 14-day, year to date? What time periods should you be looking at? So we actually have the algorithm for our software is set up to do this automatically, because this is very, very difficult to do as a human, right? How can you keep all of that data in your head for, like, what was the ACOS at 7 days? What was the ACOS at the 30 days, etc., right? So I think that the best outcome is if you can look at all of those things and measure the performance across all of them. Now, we have to do this with the software because it's simply too much data, too much information to actually be able to do that. I don't think a human could really do it. So if you're human analyzing things, I would recommend to um, at least compare last 7 days, last 30 days, last 90 days, and then maybe last 120 days, depending on the amount of data that you have. And that should give you, and again, you're going ASIN by ASIN when you're doing this, right? That should give you a decent amount of data for that ASIN to make at least some kind of educated decision, right? At least some kind of data-backed decision, right? So, for example, if you are looking, let's say you're evaluating ACOS on an ASIN, and you see that the past 7 days, the ACOS is at 50%, but the past 30 days, it's at 35%, and the past 90 days, it's at 20%, right? So what that might indicate to you is that maybe the more recent changes, if you've made recent changes on that ASIN, if the more recent bid adjustments that you've made have caused that ACOS to increase, right? Or there's something with conversion rate, right? There's a lot of factors that go into it, but yeah, I guess to answer your question, a variety of time periods is best so that you can understand the overall trend of what's happening on a given ASIN. Okay. How do you think geo ranking and STR should be leveraged? This is from Hadid. So in terms of geo ranking, I think that, so this is something that's really only available with AMC or via DSP, that you're able to target audiences based on their geographic location. Or I think you could also be referencing the fact that some products are only available in certain parts of the country and that kind of thing. So I think this would only be relevant for very large brands with a very large with a very large reach. And I don't think that the average brand of around six figures would need to worry too much about geo ranking, unless they had products that were really, really specific for different areas of the country. There could be some like weather related products, like, I don't know, winter jackets, right? That you might want to be doing something with this. But otherwise, I don't think it would be more important than having relevant keywords in your campaigns, if that makes sense. Okay. From Brittany again, I know you mentioned that 10 targets per campaign isn't likely enough. Do you have a recommendation for how many targets is a good amount? So, great question. I think it depends. Not every ASIN has a huge amount of potential synonyms or ways of searching for it. Sometimes there's an ASIN or a product that's just like, this is what people search for. This is what it's called, right? There's maybe 20 different variations of that, right? But still, for a broad campaign, we use what we call broad seeds. So we're getting to the essence or breaking down what are the core components of that product. What is the thing? What is it actually like called, right? So for example, let's say we're talking about soup spoon. Okay, so the core thing that it is a spoon, right? So then you're gonna find all of the other possible noun synonym variations for spoon, right? Maybe there's not that many, right? And then the soup part, right? Then you're gonna go and figure out, okay, well, one use of it is for soup, but maybe there are other uses for it, right? Or like, so some people call it a ladle, whatever, blah blah blah. Once you start doing that, you're easily going to get to hundreds of, again, what we call our broad keyword seeds in your discovery campaign, in your broad match campaign. So it could be hundreds. Like I said, it's not uncommon for us to have anywhere from 500 all the way up to in some cases, 1,000 different keyword seeds in our broad campaigns. And the idea behind that is that we are using those seeds to capture customer search terms. So, for example, if you have soup spoon as your broad keyword seed in your broad match type campaign, then you're going to get search terms coming through like soup spoon for cookouts or soup spoon, winter soup spoon, whatever, right? All of the different possible variations because you're using that broad match type. And so yeah. Then in terms of what you're able to harvest, it depends on how many matches you have from search terms to the keywords that you've entered in your campaign. But yeah, in the broad campaign, potentially hundreds hundreds of keywords I would recommend. I know this is a little bit of a controversial strategy, but it is one that we use time and time again, and it is very fruitful and works very well. Okay. The next question comes from Rohit. What should be my approach to get ranking in the category for a newly launched product? Okay, so when it comes to rank, you can kind of think about, like, Amazon has a quality score for every single ASIN and then every single search term that is potentially relevant for that ASIN. So remember that ranking yes, you have a ranking in your category, and okay, that's what you're asking for the category, right? You're asking how to get ranked up in the category, because there's a separate kind of ranking that Amazon has as well, which is the ranking on individual search terms, right? So soup spoon, right? That search has its own hierarchy of products that show up for its own rank, but you're asking about the category specifically. Not that there's too much differentiation there, but okay. Um, so again, Amazon has essentially a quality score for every single ASIN in its catalog, and Amazon does not disclose exactly what goes into that quality score, but we can guess pretty closely a few things that go into it. For example, what is your sales velocity? How often are you going out of stock? What's your return rate? Your listing quality, right? Your images, your copy, ratings and reviews, right? All of those are things that Amazon puts into your quality score to indicate whether or not your product should be ranked above another one in that category, right? So making sure that you have your foundation set up really well for that product. So do you have high quality images? Have you optimized your main, especially? Do you have high quality copy? Is your SEO done? Is it on point, right? And then from there, are you getting a lot of sales, and do people like the product, right? So do people do you have a good rating and do you have a good number of ratings, right? All of those things are going to increase your chances of ranking up in Amazon's in a category. Now, there can be a limit. There can be a cap to the amount of rank that you're able to gain. Not every product deserves to be ranked number one. That's the whole point of having a hierarchy, of having a ranking system like this, right? It changes, right? It can change. Like, for example, the number one spot can go to a newcomer, right? But you do need to, like, do you have more reviews and ratings than the product next to you? No. Is your price higher? Like, Amazon is always trying to do the thing that it thinks is going to make customers happy. And if your product isn't doing that better than another product, no amount of PPC spend or advertising or whatever is going to change your rank, right? If your rating is lower than the next guys, they're going to win out. They're going to get the rank, right? So it's not as simple as like, oh, your campaigns have to be a certain way or whatever. It's the whole holistic view of your quality score on Amazon. Okay, it's kind of a long answer, but I hope that helps. Okay, we have another question here from Mohammed, and he said, sometimes a search term has a lower ACoS in auto campaigns, but when we put it into exact campaigns, it will not have the same ACoS. Like, why? Okay, so basically, why sometimes does a search term have a low ACoS in an auto campaign, but not a good ACoS, or not the same ACoS in an exact campaign? So I think that comes down to two things. One is, what is your bid, right? If your bid is different in one campaign or the other, obviously that's going to impact the ACoS. And then also, I believe that Amazon has different. There's different cost per clicks. Like, the market rate of a click is different in an auto campaign versus an exact campaign. And so, because of that, you might need to bid more to win the auction in an exact, right? Versus an auto, and that can drive up your ACoS depending on your conversion rate. So that can happen sometimes between those two campaigns. But yeah, looking at your bid too, right? So yeah. I guess another way to put it is, like, in an auto campaign, you can sometimes get a cheaper click for a search term than you can in an exact campaign. Okay. Okay, next we have a question from Jess. She said, "What is my take on negative keywords?" Okay, this is a whole can of worms, right? There's a lot to potentially go over here with negative keywords. So, uh, the way that we use negative keywords is essentially two ways. But the whole purpose of negative keywords should be to tell Amazon where you don't want your product to appear because it's not relevant, or it has poor conversion, it has poor performance. And so we do that in two different ways. The first way is, like I said, we use discovery campaigns to tell us what customer search terms should appear, or what customer search terms are relevant, right, to our product, or what converts, what customer search terms convert. And in those discovery campaigns, once we've discovered the search term, once it has converted and we've moved it over to its performance campaign or to the exact campaign, we'll negate it from that source campaign. And the reason that we do that is so that we don't continue spending on it, because we've already discovered it and now we're moving it over to the exact campaign so that we can bid on it more precisely. Because in broad campaigns, you are actually not bidding on the search term, you are bidding on the keyword, and therefore not able to actually get your bid to be precise on that search term. I know that sounds confusing. A lot of people use search term and keyword interchangeably, but they are different. Remember, search terms come from the customer and keywords come from you, the advertiser, or who's ever setting up the campaigns, right? Okay, so that's the first way. We negate anything from a source campaign that has already converted. The second way is, in our discovery campaigns, if a search term is coming through that is irrelevant, we will negate it. Okay, but how do we know when something is considered irrelevant or not? Well, we use a rather elaborate system to basically determine the likelihood of whether or not that search term is going to convert. Okay, so going back to our soup spoon example, let's say that it's a metal spoon. Okay, we're selling a metal spoon, but the search term that comes through is glass soup spoon. That is not what we're selling. But is there a chance that someone could type glass soup spoon and change their mind and end up purchasing ours? Yeah, there is a slight chance there, right? And so we want to give that search term enough of a chance to prove itself one way or the other. So we assign it a probability of, like in this case, I would say that glass soup spoon has a 15% chance to convert. And based on that percentage, we assign a number of clicks that we're willing to spend to see whether or not this search term is going to work, to give it a chance, right? If it does not convert after a certain number of clicks, we negate it, because again, the whole point of negative terms is to get your PPC to be as efficient as possible. So yeah, that is a long way of explaining our take on negative keywords, but that is kind of it in a nutshell. All right. Next question is from LinkedIn user again. Can PPC ever harm a product's quality score? That's a good question. Potentially, if you were like bidding on really, really irrelevant keywords and you weren't basically feeding Amazon good data about what your product is relevant to, potentially. Or if you just have really bad PPC and you're not getting sales, that's also going to hurt your quality score. But that has more of a problem to do with the fact that you're not getting sales rather than something related to your PPC specifically. But yeah, as long as you have relevant terms and all of that in your campaigns, then PPC wouldn't actively harm your product's quality score, unless it was helping. Sorry, one other way I guess potentially is if it was helping you to get sales that resulted in a lot of like negative reviews or something like that, right? But again, it's not the PPC that's harming; it's those other things that are harming the quality score. But that's a good question. Okay, let's see if we've got anything else. Okay, I've got some other questions over here. Okay. Any other questions? We're getting close to the 30-minute mark. I might go ahead and shut us down at 30 minutes, but I do have time for another couple of questions if anybody has anything burning that they would like answered. Okay, Hadid, thank you. What other factors do you think the algorithm considers when allocating placements of our ad apart from the bid and placement modifiers? Can you explain quality score for keywords and ASINs? Okay. So, all right, let's see. When you're talking about the placement specifically, apart from the bid, okay. Yeah. So, I mean that the other things that I think go into the quality score outside of PPC would be things like inventory management, right? Like, do you have a good, are you in stock? Basically, is what Amazon wants to make sure that they can deliver on their promises of fast shipping to customers. So, if your product is consistently going out of stock, that's a big negative to your quality score. And then if you have poor ratings and reviews, that's a big hindrance to your quality score. And those two things in particular can also hurt. Well, they hurt your conversion rate and they hurt your PPC as well. And it's all connected, right? So yeah. So those. So I hope that answers your. I hope that answers your question. Okay. And then Brittany asked, how do you decide when to turn off a campaign? So we actually don't pause keywords ever. Basically, we just lower the bid as low as it can go, all the way down to 2 cents. But if in terms of when to turn off a campaign, the only campaigns that we will really ever completely pause will be our discovery campaigns. Um, if for example you have sort of maxed out your discovery campaign, or you've reached your budget, or you've reached the cost per new customer search term that you set for your campaign, then we'll go ahead and turn off those discovery campaigns. If we've kind of we've milked them, we've gotten all the juice out of them, then we'll go ahead and pause those. We do sometimes we will try to take advantage of any seasonality happening for a product, and we will turn them on. Like, let's say it's a summer product, we'll turn farming camp or discovery campaigns on again in the summer to try to capture new keywords. But yeah. Okay, and then Rohit, I think people are really interested in the whole the idea of the quality score. It is a really interesting topic, and we get into the whole idea of deserved rank as well, right? So it's interesting. Okay, how can I tell if a campaign is failing due to bad targeting or poor listing quality? So basically, your okay, if it's targeting for, the way I would evaluate this is trying to see whether you have a traffic problem or a conversion problem. If you have a traffic problem, then it could be related to bad targeting, either irrelevant keywords, or maybe your bids aren't high enough, right? So is it a traffic problem? You could look at those things. So indicators of that would be a like impressions and traffic, right? And then if it's a conversion problem, then you would be looking at poor listing quality, right? So if you're getting impressions, you're getting clicks, but you're not getting sales, it's a listing problem, right? Um, and one other thing in there is your click-through rate. That could indicate that it's maybe related to your price or your main image or your title, right? Those specific listing issues. So click-through rate is technically a conversion indicator, but it's a little bit in between both traffic and conversion. Okay. And then from LinkedIn user, we have they ask, in if you're casting such a wide net, right? If we have these hundreds or even 1,000 keywords in our campaigns, it could it possibly lead to not ideal terms? Yes, if you don't do your keyword research well. Like, if you have a bunch of bad seeds in your campaigns, then you could potentially get terms that don't work out very well for you, right? But as long as you have done your keyword research well, and this is a process that takes 6 to 8 hours per ASIN for us. Like, this is one of the most fundamental parts of us putting campaigns together, is the keyword research. So as long as you're doing that well and you're finding those keyword seeds that relate, to your product, uh, you should have a good time. Okay. Last question here. Mohammed says, I'm a beginner in Amazon PPC. I'm learning with online courses, but I don't have any clients or in Seller Central. Could you please give me advice on how I can boost my PPC skills to expert level? Okay, so yeah, you definitely need to get some practice in the sort of real world, in the real sandbox, right, of running campaigns. A lot of people actually get their start by selling their own products on Amazon, right? And I know that can be a pretty big investment for a lot of people, especially like paying for the inventory, paying for the stock, and doing that, right? But yeah, so a lot of people get their start that way. Otherwise, becoming an intern at an agency, or doing freelance, right? Trying Upwork, getting clients that way, right? I mean, you you're going to have a first client, and they might be a little bit of an experiment, right? But as long as you're open and transparent with that client about the situation, right? You might need to work for free, then that should be a good way for you to learn, and as well for them to have some help. So that's what I would say for that one. Okay, we have one more question here. I'll answer it, and then we'll probably call it a day. So let's see. So Mohammed said, how can we use the SQP, the search query performance, to optimize our PPC strategy, and how helpful is search conversion rate? Okay. So Mohammed said about okay, so first let's talk about the search query performance report. So the search query performance report is very useful in giving you an idea of the trend of your market share of different metrics along the funnel. So your impression share, your click share, conversion share, all of that, right? It can help you to understand that. And if that trend is showing any indication of decline, then you'll know where to which terms to potentially focus your efforts on in your PPC. Right. So if you are seeing a decline in impression share, then you can evaluate the specific, because it gives you the queries, right? It gives you the terms there. Okay. And then the other way that it can help you is if somehow you are ranking organically on some keywords that you don't have in your PPC campaigns, then you can do an analysis to see whether or not you want to add those and target them in advertising as well. If you're already ranking for them organically, it could be like a low-hanging fruit, basically. Okay. Okay, I guess we'll keep going. I think I've put an hour on this, but okay. All right. What's Rohit asks, what's the most effective ad strategy to drive enough sales velocity that helps with organic ranking for new products? Um, I don't know that there's like one silver bullet ad strategy or anything new. I think sticking with the fundamental structure and strategy that I mentioned about having, your those 6 campaigns, right? The broad match campaign, the category targeting campaign, and the auto campaign with a higher bid for doing your discovery will help to bring in the sales, right? And also discover terms at the same time, because your goal is to increase sales velocity, right? The other thing, of course, is doing Vine voice, right? Getting as many reviews as you can. That always really, really helps. And yeah, if you have budget, then you can also do more top of funnel type of ads, like running a sponsor brands video campaign. We have had success with that in the past. So those kinds of things, again, depending on your budget and the product. Okay, and next question: what tools that are openly available and like maybe free do you recommend? For example, Helium 10. So we use Helium 10 mostly for doing our keyword research to get an idea of search volume, and it's not perfect. I think no tool is really, really perfect with that. We also use Amazon has some native tools available like brand analytics. That's what we use for keyword research. I think another tool that can be really helpful for people is called Data Dive. I think this is a quality tool out there, and helps you understand your rank and changes to rank on different search terms. That's a very good tool. And I will also say the Ad Labs bid adjustment tool is a very good one. It is just there to help you adjust your bids, but that is one of the most important parts of running good PPC. So that is a tool. It's not free, but if you are looking to like up your game with a tool in PPC, that's one that I would check out. Okay, next question from Shailene. I think, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. How often do you do bid optimization? And am I using ACOT target? And I am using ACOS target optimization, and it looks good. That is per ASIN. How can I know what ASIN has a lot of room for? Okay, um, excuse me. Okay, so we do bid optimization every single hour. We utilize something called day parting. So Amazon gives us hourly data, and so based on the performance of of a campaign at a certain time of the day or day of the week, we'll optimize bids hourly. But if you don't have a software tool to do that, that's basically impossible. And I think evaluating your campaigns once per day is important, but that doesn't mean you need to make changes every single day. You only need to make changes when something isn't reaching your goal, right? So monitoring every day. You don't necessarily need to make changes every day, but yeah. And I'm using my ACOS target. Okay, we determine a good target ACOS on a product based on the actual gross profit margin of that specific ASIN. So again, remember, fundamental part of PPC is single ASIN, single ad group, single match type in your campaigns. And the reason for that, the most important one of those pillars is the single ASIN rule. So one ASIN per campaign allows you to see whether or not that campaign has a profitable ACOS for that ASIN. And profitable means what is the contribution margin of that ASIN as a percentage? And okay, what is, sorry, I got distracted by the questions. What is a profitable ACOS for an ASIN is determined by the contribution margin of that ASIN. So all you're doing is you're taking the revenue, which is your price, minus the cost of goods of that product, which you only know if you ask, if you're running for other people, you ask your client, right? That's the first question we ask all of our clients is what are your cost of goods? Well, not the first question, but an important one. Subtract out FBA fee, subtract out Amazon's commission fee, and then we add a 3% buffer for everything else. Then you have your gross profit for that product, and then divide that by your price, and now you have your contribution profit margin. That percentage is your target ACOS. If your ACOS is less than that percentage, it's got more room for spending. If that percentage is higher, it's not profitable, you might need to pull back, right? So let's say the contribution profit margin of an ASIN is 30%. If your ACOS is 20%, you can spend more, right? You can spend more and still make profit. And then if it's higher, you might need to reduce bids or whatever. But again, looking at the different time periods, it can vary, but that is the rule of thumb. Okay, Hadid asks, for day parting, are you using Scale Insights? No, we use our own proprietary software that we've built. We didn't really find anything that we like on the market, so we actually have an in-house software that we built. It took us like 2+ years to build it. It was a whole thing. I don't necessarily recommend doing that for yourself, but that's what we use. Okay, SA says, is there any opportunity to join your team as a PPC intern or mid-level expert? We are not hiring right now, but I will absolutely let everyone know if we are in the future. Thank you for asking. Hadid says, is there a notion in the community that changing bids too much may confuse the algorithm? No, I don't think that Amazon cares how often you change your bids. It just wants the most money possible. Okay, really good question from this LinkedIn user here. Is it ever a good idea to run PPC at a loss to raise the quality score, sales or reviews, for example? Absolutely. Particularly during the launch phase, it can make sense to run at a loss, to be below your break even ACOS for a given ASIN or campaign, right? Because your goal is to get as many sales as possible, and you might need to go into the red to do that. And that's okay, but you need to do that intentionally, and you need to, I would recommend setting a specific budget, right? Okay, we know we want to go, we only want to go into the red, $300 or something like that, right? For the launch phase. That's a good example. Or if you need to re-rank after being out of stock would be another time. I could see that being a good option. Okay. Okay. Well, lots of really good questions today. If anybody else has any thoughts, feel free to put it in the chat, or sorry, go ahead and comment on the event. And yeah, we'll keep going for a couple minutes, see if anybody has any questions. But just want to say here, really appreciate everybody joining today. We will be trying to do this more often. This was super fun, and it's been great hearing everybody's questions and understanding kind of what problems people might be dealing with PPC, and how, and being able to help you guys is really fun. Okay. Hadid said one more question, so I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you. Let's see what we got. Or maybe Hadid doesn't have a question. He just wants me to answer somebody else's. So, all right. Brittany asked, "Are there any?" Oh, I can do that. That's cool. Are there any tactics you use in PPC management that aren't widely adopted by other people running PPC? Yes, absolutely. I think that we do a lot of things that other people don't necessarily do, and one of them is our take on brand defense. This is very controversial. I get a lot of I get a lot of pushback on LinkedIn about this, but we typically believe in about 90 to 95% of cases you don't actually need to be doing brand defense in your PPC. What does that mean? So if you're Nike and you are bidding on Nike in as a keyword, you're actually just cannibalizing your organic sales, because if someone is looking for your brand specifically when they type into the search bar on Amazon, they're going to buy your product no matter what, and you don't need to pay for that click because you're going to get it organically. So what I would say is this does need to be evaluated on a case by case basis. There are certain categories, there are certain search terms that are very competitive, and yes, you do need to do some brand defense, right? I'm not saying never do it, but but at least entertain and consider the idea that you don't need to actually do brand defense. And a lot of people running PPC do like to do it because it gives the results look so good. The ACOS is so low because conversion is so high, because of course they already know they want your product, right? Okay. Okay, so Hadi did have one more question. So we have started an agency and wanted to do white label with other agencies. You yourself being the owner of the agency, can you tell me what would you want to see in them? Okay, so we as an agency, we do white label our services. So if another agency needs help running, like let's say they do graphic design, but their clients also want PPC management, we'll help them do their PPC management, right? So we do white label. Um, and so your question is, what qualities would you want to see? I want to do. Okay, what qualities would we want to see in an agency that we were a white label partner for? So, um, really, it's going to come down to the client fit, right? If the other agency, so let's say another agency approached us to partner with them to manage their PPC department, right? Um, we would evaluate whether or not their clients were a good fit for us or not. Not, I mean, when you were white labeling, we don't have to interface with the clients, and that's okay, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about their accounts, right? Like, are the client accounts a good fit for us? For example, we know that we tend not to work great in certain niches, like supplements is a very, very challenging one. So unless they are very well established in the supplements category already, it's going to be difficult for us to come in and like launch a brand new supplements brand, for example. So that's what we would be looking for. Is it was really like a client fit, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody again for joining. Really appreciate you being here. If you have any additional questions that didn't make it into the live today, that's okay. Feel free to shoot me a DM. I'm always happy to talk about Amazon and about PPC, and we'll definitely be doing this again. I think I'll be inviting some guests to join in the future so that you don't have to just listen to me talk forever. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, and I will be posting this on YouTube as well if you want to come back to this in any way. But it's really great to have people here live and answer questions live. It's just super fun. So all right, thank you everybody so much, and I'll see you soon.